is going on? Thank heaven we have Governor Mike Huckabee here to lay it out for us. Governor, what is going on? Do they have a plan?
No, they don't have a plan. The plan is to continue to change the plan to adapt to whatever the political winds are blowing. This is like watching a Woody Allen movie. There are so many different plots going on, and the neuroses of trying to find what is it we're going to do. And it's really a tragedy because we're talking about human lives on the American side that are going to be called to, even if firing missiles, at some point, this is probably not going to be limited to just shooting off fireworks.
If a leader uses chemical weapons, what are we supposed to do?
Well, I think we have to condemn it, but here's the point. If we don't have an international outrage, this is one of the times that if the United Nations cannot unite around a condemnation of the use of chemical weapons and impose some type of economic and or other sanctions on Syria, then let's jackhammer the whole thing off, float it into the East River, and be done with it. It's an absolute waste of effort. But we don't have that kind of outrage, in part because the evidence is not absolutely 100% concrete at this point.
Why not?
Well, I think because, one thing, the inspectors didn't get there that quickly. The Russians have a 100-page report that they say refutes the 9-page report that the United States is dependent upon.
This sounds like Iraq.
Well, it is. But here's the point. We don't know for certain. You know, we have a criminal justice system that says you don't carry out a sentence on somebody until you are found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. There's still some reasonable doubt here. So taking military action without understanding what we know to be the facts is premature.
So, Governor, sorry, I just need to clarify something. Why can't we just launch Tomahawk missiles? I mean, didn't this work in Bosnia or Kosovo? Can't we just do a missile strike on the chemical weapons or the air artillery, stuff like that? Why must it be boots on the ground?
Well, it doesn't have to be boots on the ground unless we want to secure the chemical weapons. And then the Pentagon reports that it's going to take 75,000 boots on the ground to actually go get them. You can't take out the chemical weapons with Tomahawk missiles. They're buried underground. They're spread all over the place.
They're moved around.
Yeah, and plus, you know, I used to live in a city that controlled all of America's nerve gas, Pine Bluff, Arkansas. It's all been destroyed now. But at the time, the problem was if you blew it up, you've blown it up into the air. You've now killed a lot of people.
Exactly right. And if you destabilize the Assad regime, maybe those chemical weapons wind up in the hands of the rebels, many of whom are affiliated with al-Qaeda. So the question, these are the questions being debated on the Hill. The president, according to the latest whip count, does not have the support of most members of Congress,
right,
especially in the House. Some Democrats are on the fence. Eleanor Holmes Norton, who's the non-voting, thank God, delegate from D.C., explained why, if she could vote, she would vote for Obama's position on Syria. Listen to her rationale.
Saved it all. I think it'll be because of loyalty of Democrats. They just don't want to see him shamed and humiliated on the national scene.
Yeah, right.
At the moment, that's the only reason I would vote for it if I could vote on it.
So Eleanor Holmes Norton would vote to kill people,
yeah,
in order that the president not be, quote, shamed. Is that a good rationale for killing people, do you think?
It's an insane rationale for launching a military strike, to keep the president from being embarrassed. What she's sworn to, as is every member of Congress, uphold the Constitution and to serve her constituents. Those are the two basic responsibilities, neither of which she has seemingly an interest in. It's making sure to cover the president's rear end. That's not what she's there for.
So people die so the president's not humiliated. Okay, just
to clarify that, absolutely.
You'll remember that before Iraq, in the lead up to Iraq, Hollywood really was up in arms. There were big protests. Celebrities were coming on talk shows. So now there's been relative silence about the lead up to Syria. Ed Asner, however, has come out to talk about how conflicted basically Hollywood is about this because they want to support the president. Here was his rationale. We look forward to you trying to parse this. A lot of people don't want to feel anti-black by being opposed to Obama. I voted for him, but I'm not proud. He hasn't thrown himself on the funeral pyre. I wanted him to sacrifice himself. Instead, he has proved himself to be a corporatist. And as long as he's a corporatist, he is not my president. A lot of people have lost hope with the betrayals, the NSA spying. People are not getting active because who gives a blank is essentially the bottom line.
I was wondering what that word was, the blank.
Blank. That's blank.
Look, that's a racist statement. That is a racist statement. Let me tell you why. Racism is when we show preference to a person because of race. Now, if I show preference to my own race, we would say that's racism. But if I show preference to someone else's race and I give them deferential treatment, it's still racism because I'm showing deference and preference to one race over another. This is the worst example of the duplicity of people who think they're so open-minded, but in fact are racist. This is racism in its rawest form, when you start treating people differently because of their race, whether you treat them worse or whether you treat them better. This is just there's a negative racism and a positive racism. This is what might be called positive racism. I treat you better because I don't want to offend you because of your color.
Where is Ed Asner getting any proof that anybody is doing this, though?
That anyone
not supporting or not speaking out about the issue because they don't want to be
Well, he is.
black.
That's what he said. That he said, I don't want to be perceived as anti-black. And I've heard other people make this kind of claim. I think it's ridiculous to say, well, if, for example,
the administration's constantly telling people, if you oppose him, you're racist. I mean, how many times have you heard that from members of Congress?
And talk show hosts on other networks that I won't even mention. But the fact is, they say that if you oppose Obama's policies, you're a racist. No, you're not a racist. You oppose his policies because you don't agree with them. It has nothing to do with race. Nothing.
Oh, interesting. Governor, great to